live from the new sports betting capital of the world.
You might be from Texas, but I'm from New Jersey.
Benny Ricciardi is here to break down the day's betting board for you.
Let's go, Jerry. Go!
Taking a first look at the day's bets, it's time for the FTN Betting Show. Welcome to the FTN Betscast for Wednesday, July 27th here at FTN Bets, sponsored by our friends over at Sleeper. Sleeper is the fastest growing fantasy platform today with millions of players, and now you can win on Sleeper by playing in their new over-under game. It's super easy to play. So first, in any sport, you're going to choose two or more players that you like, and you're going to pick whether they're going to go over or under their listed total. So for example, it could be the number of hits in baseball, maybe the number of runs a guy's going to score, could be the number of strikeouts that a pitcher is going to get tonight. Then you're going to choose an amount of money that you want to enter into the contest, and if you pick it correctly, you can win anywhere from 2 times your money all the way up to 20 times your money if you go 5 out of 5 and get them all right. But the main reason I'm excited about this over-under game on Sleeper, it's the only app where I can join in my buddy's contest and we could all play together. It has a built-in group chat where I can see what you're playing, you can see what I'm playing, and we could all see what the guy who won 3 days in a row in our group is playing. And it's insanely fun when everybody is riding it out together and rooting for the same things. So stop what you're doing now, download the Sleeper app, play in their new over-under game, have some fun with your friends, and make a little bit of money in the process. On your mobile phone, you can join our listener group on Sleeper by going to sleeper.com/FTNBets, and Sleeper will automatically match your first deposit up to $100. Again, sleeper.com/FTNBets, and you get a $100 match on that first deposit. There are terms and conditions that apply, so see Sleeper's terms of use for those details. Today, we're going to wrap up the AFC South by looking at the Houston Texans. So I can't imagine this is going to be a very long podcast. There's not a lot of things to talk about here with the Texans. Probably not going to be a good season for the Houston Texans again here. The Texans are, they're coming off a season where they were just 4-13 last year. Jeff Ratcliffe has them in our projected wins totals over at FTN Bets, has them projected for 4.9 wins this year. The consensus number that's out there in the market is 4.5 wins for the Houston Texans. So we do like the over there a little bit at 4.9. And the over is actually paying decent amount here. It's 105 plus 105 on PointsBet is the best number we can get on the over 4.5 wins. It's even money on a lot of sites as low as minus 105 on some there. So you are getting it slightly discounted here as well. And I like that for the Houston Texans. If you want to play the under for the Houston Texans on that 4.5 wins, the best price we can find there is at FanDuel at minus 110. A lot of the other sites out there are minus 120, minus 125 here. So to get it at standard minus 110 juice, under 4.5 wins for the Houston Texans, FanDuel would be the place to go there. Again, with a 4.9 projection that we have, I'd rather play the over 4.5 wins, especially knowing that we're getting plus 105 on it. I think that's the way that I want to play the Houston Texans. Let's see some other things we can look at here for the Houston Texans. Will the Houston Texans make the playoffs? If you think they do, you can get a nice payout on that. 16-1 plus 1,600 on DraftKings for the Houston Texans to make the playoffs. Will they make the playoffs? No. I mean, I've seen this as low as minus 3,500. Its best price here is minus 3,335 on Bet Rivers and Sugar House. So again, can you bet them to not make the playoffs? Absolutely. Are they going to make the playoffs? Very unlikely. Can you make any money on betting them not to make the playoffs? No, not really. I mean, you're going to be getting pennies back on the dollar here. It's probably not even worth it to put your money at risk there. I think for, what do you get, like $3 per $100 bet or something like that? It's just really not a good payout. So like I said, if you want to do it, by all means, I'm not going to stop you. That's, it's your money. You spend it the way you want to, but for me, I mean, again, what's the point of locking your money up for the better part of 5 months, right? Like you're not going to have the answer to whether or not they go under 5 wins until sometime in January, probably. I mean, maybe they're so bad that you know the answer by late December, but either way, do you want to lock your money up for 5 months to win, 3%? So for me, the answer to that is no. So I'm staying away from that. Will the Texans make the playoffs? And I'm not betting yes, because I really don't see any way they get to. You need about 10 wins, 9 wins, maybe 10 wins, pretty much guaranteed based on last year. With that being said, I don't see them getting anywhere near 9 or 10 wins. There are some other interesting ones that we could talk about here, though. Will they have the worst regular season record? FanDuel has this at plus 350. Caesars has it as low as plus 250. The consensus in the market here is plus 300. So, will the Texans have the worst regular season record? Now, again, that's not AFC. That's the entire NFL. They have to have the worst record, get the number one overall pick. And yeah, I definitely think they're in contention for it. So, plus 350, not a horrible number to take there on FanDuel if you want to go that route. Will the Texans go 0-17? I mean, listen, they won 4 games last year, I think. So going 0-17, I mean, not a lot of teams do go 0-17. A lot of times, you get lucky and you win a game here or there, and you wind up, 2-15, 1-16, something like that. So will they go 0-17? I don't think so. But again, you're getting a pretty good payout on it. 25-1 plus 2,500. You can get that at Unibet, Sugar House, or Bet Rivers if you want to bet them to go 0-17 this year for the Houston Texans. Another one I wanted to talk about here. Last year, Jacksonville had the fewest points scored in the league at 14.9. Their offense is expected to be better. Travis Etienne is back. They added Christian Kirk. You got another year of Trevor Lawrence in there. So I think they're going to score some more points this year, which means that the Texans could wind up being the team that scores the fewest points this year. The consensus number on this is plus 500. The best number on this, fewest points scored, Houston Texans, plus 550 on BetMGM is the best number you can get for the Houston Texans to be the most anemic offense in the NFL for 2021. We'll talk about some of the, trophy numbers here, although honestly, I really don't see them winning anything this year. Let's see, the Houston Texans to win the AFC South. The Houston Texans are the longest shot to win the AFC South. We've talked about this before. You have Indianapolis and Tennessee up there at the top, with Indy being a slight favorite over Tennessee. Then you have a big gap down to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And then you have another big gap down to the Houston Texans, who are currently sitting at plus 3,500 on Caesars is the best price we can get there. The consensus number for them is plus 2,500 or 25-1. And then remember, this isn't to win the AFC. This is just to win the AFC South. They're 4-team division here. 25-1 on MGM, FanDuel, Unibet, Bet Rivers, Sugar House is the consensus number. 35-1 plus 3,500 on Caesars is the best number there if you want to back the Houston Texans to do the impossible and go from worst to first and win their division. Well, not really worst to first, because Jacksonville's there too. Let's see, for the Houston Texans to win the AFC, 150-1 on BetMGM is the best number out there. DraftKings has it at 130. The consensus is 125 plus 12,500. You can get that on 4 or 5 different books. And the low number is 100-1 on FanDuel and PointsBet, which is the low number there. But again, if you're willing to bet the Texans to win the AFC, which again, I think you're just lighting money on fire. But if you want to do it, 150-1 on BetMGM is the best price you can get there. I'm going to use that same lighting money on fire example for the Houston Texans to win the Super Bowl. But again, we'll talk about the numbers here. 300-1 plus 30,000 is the number that you're getting here. FanDuel, Sugar House, Bet Rivers, BetMGM, Unibet all have it at that 300-1 number at plus 30,000 for the Houston Texans to win the Super Bowl. The other books all have it at plus 25,000 or 250-1. So again, is it a big enough number for me to take the Texans? No, it's really not. Like I do not see any way that this team wins. I don't even know what the number would have to be. Maybe if it got to like, I don't know. Maybe if it got to like somewhere where I'm getting paid out, like, I don't know, maybe 100,000-1 or something like that. I don't even know what number it would have to be at. Again, if we don't see them winning 5 games this year, how can you take them to win a division? How can you take them to win a conference? How can you take them to win the Super Bowl? And again, I don't even know if they're going to get to that 5 wins there. I don't think that's all that crazy to think they could go under. So no way I see the Texans winning it all this year. If they do, you know what? I'll tip my cap to them. I'll be the most surprised guy in the place. So again, like I said, there isn't a lot to talk about here with the Houston Texans. We'll go over and talk about some player props, but there's really only 2 guys that we even have to mention. The first one, we'll start like where we always start here with the quarterback, Davis Mills. Davis Mills played 13 games last year, threw for 2,664 yards, had 16 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Again, this is not a very good offense. This is probably not going to be a good offense this year. You got guys like Marlon Mack, who's probably going to be their running back, maybe a little Rex Burkhead mixed in there. They do have the rookie kid, Dameon Pierce. You look on the outside, I mean, they drafted a receiver in John Mechie, and he's already hurt and out for the year. So you're back with the same guys you had last year, Brandon Cooks, Nico Collins, and then tight end Brevin Jordan are going to be the guys that are going to have to kind of carry this offense right now. And I just don't see how any of the guys that we mentioned here are going to carry the offense. They have, with the exception of Brandon Cooks, every other skill position player they have probably ranks from the middle to the bottom of the league. The second best guy they have is probably Brevin Jordan. Their tight end is the only other guy, and it's more because he's young and he has upside and he's going to be giving a lot of opportunity than anything else here. So really not a lot of weapons for Davis Mills to work with here. The offensive line is not all that great either. I mean, there wasn't that the big argument that Deshaun Watson had when he was there is that they got to get him some help on that line. So I don't know. There's just not a lot here to be excited about with the Houston Texans. I mean, we could talk about the Davis Mills MVP numbers and offensive player of the year numbers and lead the league in passing yards, lead the league in receiving, lead the league in passing touchdowns, all that fun stuff. But honestly, again, I just think you're lighting money on fire there. I don't think he's going to get up there. I don't think he's going to even be close to the league lead in any of those categories, with the exception of maybe interceptions, which we'll talk about in a little bit here. I really don't see any of these things that he could even possibly lead the league in. So let's see. Let's take a look at some of the actual numbers here. 3,450 yards passing for Davis Mills. Davis Mills averaged a little over 200 yards passing in the 13 games he played last season. If he plays all 17 this year, he should be right around that 3,450 yards, which means there's really no edge I can see here to the top or to the upside or the downside. If anything, I would actually rather play the under. And the reason for that is what we always talk about, right? Like 2/3 of these season-long props tend to be negative and tend to go under. A lot of that has to do with injuries. And again, it doesn't even have to be the guy out for the year. If Mills misses 2 or 3 games here, averaging 200 yards, now he's only playing 15, 16 games this year, and he's probably going to throw for around 3,000 yards. So he's going to be underneath this. He would really have to play incredibly well and have some bigger games this year, or he would have to stay healthy and still play pretty well in order to make this, meaning that a lot of things have to go right for him to hit the over here. So again, if you're going to make a bet on it, I like the under. FanDuel has this -112 to the over or the under. So I do like it there. Actually, though, if you're going to play the over, you want to play it on FanDuel at 3,450 yards. DraftKings has this at 3,700 yards, although the under is juiced up to -125. But again, I'd still take the bigger number and take the under there. I actually don't hate the under at 3,450 yards on FanDuel, but the best place to play the under is 3,700 yards over on DraftKings. Again, juiced up a little bit at -125, but that probably is the best way to go about playing Davis Mills passing yardage prop this season. Davis Mills, 21.5 touchdowns. If you want to play an over, this is the one I like the most of all of the Davis Mills props. He did throw 16 touchdown passes last year in only 13 games. So if you extend that out to give him a full 17 games, he's going to be right around 20 touchdown passes here. And I do expect him to improve. I do expect the offense to be slightly more efficient. Although, again, this is not not that it was a good offense last year, but, you did have, Rex Burkhead as your lead running back for most of the season. And this year, you're probably going to have Marlon Mack, which I know some people laugh at, but Marlon Mack is definitely a better running back than Rex Burkhead. Rex Burkhead may be a solid guy to put in there for pass protection and stuff like that and run some routes out of the backfield. But overall, I think they're going to get more production out of Marlon Mack, which at the very least is going to make the offense a little more balanced. And again, I think they're going to be losing a lot of games this year. And if they're losing, that means they're going to be throwing a lot late. So it does give a chance for Davis Mills to get some mop-up time and some, meaningless mop-up touchdowns there. So if I was going to play any Davis Mills over, it's going to be over 21.5 passing touchdowns this year. 14.5 is the number on interceptions. Again, he threw 10 interceptions in 13 games last year. I don't think 14.5 is a crazy number this year. I actually do prefer the under on it. But again, I don't think it's crazy. Davis Mills is one of those kind of guys that we talked about the other day where, when you're talking about a quarterback leading the league in interceptions, there's a certain kind of quarterback that gets a chance to do that. Rookies are one of those kind of guys, right? Because rookies and young quarterbacks, they tend to have a longer leash, right? Like, I mean, if they're going to pull Davis Mills, it's not like they have his replacement on his team. Because again, if they did, there'd be a chance that guy would be the starter this year, because it's not like Davis Mills is going out there and lighting the world on fire. Do I think he's an average quarterback? I think he's about an average quarterback. He's got a chance to improve. People liked him coming out of college. He's only his second year. Like, I'm not saying the guy is cooked and done for and his career is over, but he's not the guy that a lot of people are expecting to be a future Pro Bowler, right? Like, that's probably the best way for me to say this. With that being said, if they had a better option, they probably would have went for it. If they didn't think he could do it, they would have went out and signed somebody, brought in some competition for him. They basically are giving the keys to this kid and saying, hey, work yourself through it, figure some things out there. So that is the kind of guy that we do like when we talk about leading the league in interceptions. The problem is, I also think that he's smart enough with the ball where he's not going to force things. And that's the thing. I mean, even last year, played 13 games through 10 interceptions. That's not great, but it's not horrible either. If you spread that out to 17 games, his average would be under 14 interceptions. So, again, do you think he's going to be worse this year? No, I don't think he's going to be worse this year. I think he's, a little bit more used to things. He's had an entire offseason. He's going to have an entire preseason where he's going to be the guy taking all the snaps in practice. So I would expect Davis Mills to play better this year, not worse, which would put him under for those interceptions. So, again, not really in love with it. I like the under in yardage. I like the under in interceptions. I do think if you're going to play an over, the over in touchdowns is the way to go, but I'm not playing it there. For me, give me the under on DraftKings at minus 125 for 3,700 yards passing. I think that's the best way to play any Davis Mills prop this year for the Houston Texans. The only other guy we can really talk about here is going to be Brandon Cooks, right? Because Marlon Mack is the running back, and they have him for like MVP and Offensive Player of the Year. And yeah, that's all great. He's not winning any of those awards, right? I don't even think he's going to be their starting running back by the end of the season. The kid Damian Pierce that they took is probably going to be the guy who they decide to go with by the end of the year, assuming, even if Marlon Mack is healthy. I mean, at least, you got to give the young kid a chance, see what he has there, see if he's going to be the guy that you need for next year. Otherwise, at least, you got to go after somebody in free agency or use some capital in the draft. So I think they're going to give that kid a chance by the end of the year. So I wouldn't play any of the Marlon Mack overs on his like yardage or touchdowns or any of that stuff. But none of the books even have them listed anyway, because I think the books are thinking the same thing. It's like, yeah, maybe he's a starting running back, but he's not going to be for the whole season. So why are we going to go ahead and, give people a free and easy under on him? If you see any numbers get posted for Marlon Mack and they look a little high, the under is probably more likely for that reason. Nico Collins, Brevin Jordan, the two other pass catchers that are going to be out there next to Brandon Cooks. Again, not really any numbers posted yet for any of those guys. I do expect Jordan to take a step up, have a little bit of a bigger role. Nico Collins was the number 2 receiver on his team last year. He's going to be the number 2 receiver again this year because John Mechie was the only opportunity that he had to lose that job. And now that he's out for the year already, it's probably going to be Nico Collins out there again for, 70, 80% of the snaps. So he did not have a monster season last year. I think he only had like 33 catches. He did miss some games there, but what do you have? Like 33 for like 440 something and a touchdown, I think. So maybe he improves on those numbers, but it's not going to be a massive improvement on those numbers. Now, I went through all of that to get to the only guy that really matters here for, the skill position players for the Texans, and that's going to be Brandon Cooks. And Brandon Cooks is an incredibly underrated player. Brandon Cooks has been on 4 teams in the last 7 years. 6 of those last 7 years, he's gone for 1,000 or more receiving yards. He had 1,000 plus receiving yards with New Orleans, back with Drew Brees early in his career. He did it 1 year in New England. He did it 1 year in LA. And then he got hurt the next year in LA. Then he wound up in Houston. And he's done it the last 2 years in Houston. So 6 of the last 7 years, this guy's gone for 1,000 plus receiving yards, had 90 catches, 1,037 yards, and 6 touchdowns last year. So we have a couple numbers that we can look at here. Brandon Cooks over 82.5 catches, over under minus 115 on DraftKings. That's an interesting one to look at here with, with Brandon Cooks. I like it. I like the over if he stays healthy. He had 90 catches last year, but it's not my favorite number to bet on, so I kind of stayed away from it, but I would lean to the over if I had to. Next one, 5.5 touchdowns for Brandon Cook. Each year in Houston, he had 6 touchdowns in the last 4 years. I think 3 of the last 4 years, he's had at least 6 or more. With that being said, the over is minus 125. It's juiced up. So I like the over, but at the juiced up minus 125, I'm not looking to bet on it there. You can get that number over on DraftKings, minus 125 to the over, minus 105 to the under. Best numbers out there, for the touchdowns there for Brandon Cooks. Next thing is the number of receiving yards for Brandon Cooks. FanDuel has the low number here at 950.5, over and under are minus 112 there. So if you want to bet the over, again, 6 of the last 7 seasons, this guy's gone for 1,000 yards or more. He's done it on 4 different teams with 5 different quarterbacks. So, Brandon Cooks is about as consistent as it comes when it comes to a receiver. Now, does he have any other help on his team? No, not really, but that actually works in his favor, doesn't it? I mean, that means that this is a guy that's going to have to get fed because there really aren't a lot of other options there. And again, we've seen it happen 2 years in a row for him in Houston. So really like Brandon Cooks over 950 yards on FanDuel. If he stays healthy, minus 112, the best number you could take there for the over. Not only is it the best payout, but it's also the best number we get down at 950. There's also 974.5 is the high number that's out there, and that's at BetMGM, minus 115 to the over and the under there. So if you want to go under on the Brandon Cooks receiving yards, 974.5 minus 115 at BetMGM is the way to go. For me, I like the over, though. I'm taking the over 950 on FanDuel, minus 112 for the guy, 6 of the last 7 years who's gone for over 1,000 yards receiving. And like I said, there's nothing else we can really talk about here. Marlon Mack, Dameon Pierce, John Mechie getting hurt. No more Rookie of the Year odds for him there. Nico Collins. None of these guys really have any receiving yardage or receptions or touchdown numbers that are up right now, because a lot of these guys, especially in the running backs, we don't know how that's going to work out with Burkhead and Mack and Pierce. I mean, I think it's going to be Mack. I assume he's the starter at the beginning of the year. I would assume he's not the starter by the end of the year. Burkhead's going to sprinkle in there and just kind of piss us all off in fantasy. He might get a touchdown here or there. He's going to steal a couple receptions, might get a couple carries as well. It's just one of those situations you want to avoid. And then, like I said, even with the pass catchers, I would be interested in some of the Brevin Jordan numbers when they eventually come out. I think he's going to wind up being the number 2 receiver on this team, or the number 2 pass catcher, I should say, tight end. So the number 2 pass catcher on this team this year. The number 2 receiver is Nico Collins. And again, last year, 33 catches, 464 yards. Even if he takes a step forward, what are we looking at? Like maybe 50 for 600 or something like that. So again, those are probably going to be under numbers. We'll have to wait and see what the books eventually hang for him. Right now, there are no season-long props for guys other than Brandon Cooks and Davis Mills. So like I said, not a lot that we could really talk about here at the Houston Texans. But that does wrap up our look at the AFC South. We have 4 divisions down, 4 divisions to go. We're going to start getting into the other 4 divisions in the North and the West in the AFC and NFC next week, or actually later on this week. So make sure you keep tuning in here to the FTNBets Cast, sponsored by our good friends at Sleeper. Good luck today, everybody.
Live from the new sports betting capital of the world.
You might be from Texas, but I'm from New Jersey.